Our lives will be better soon, you'll see, if you'll break some bread with me. When our two worlds collide, it's so easy to take sides. So we're trying to find a better way by baking bread today.
I'm going to tell you a wee story, and then I'm going to introduce Tom and Phil. And many of you will have heard this story before, but I never tire of telling it. It's about a wee hummingbird. And the wee hummingbird was lying back in the grass one day with his two legs up in the air. And along comes an elephant. And he saw the hummingbird and he says, "What and under the shining sun are you doing lying there with those wee legs of yours up in the air?" And the hummingbird said, "Well, I heard tell that the sky was going to fall on the day, so I'm here to hold it up." And the elephant laughed even more. And says he, "How do you expect a wee buck like you with those two wee spindly legs to hold up the sky?" And the hummingbird said, "Now, Mr. Elephant, I'm not that stupid, but if I do my wee bit and everybody else does their wee bit, everything will be fine." And with that, the elephant got down for it. So we can all do something. You know, if it's even just sharing a smile, it can make a complete difference to somebody's day. So that's what I want to say for now. Phil, now I have it written down. You see that Helen one? She's actually putting a shape on me. Phil and Tom, they're a husband and wife duo. Now, I tried to find out stuff about you, Tom, on the machine, and I'll tell you what I came up with. Oh yeah, I came up with a Tom McFarland, and he's the Chief Lending Officer of the Independence Bank. Is that you?
No.
What, would you be a literary critic?
No.
Are you an attorney and partner with some law firm in St. Augustine?
Not the last time I looked.
Are you from Belfast?
I am.
Oh, good. I got something right. Phil and Tom have been entertaining on the folk scene all over England, out of the British Isles, you could say, and all over Europe. They have a huge fan following. And they both grew up in Northern Ireland. Phil, you grew up in Balik.
That's right, yeah.
On the border.
On the border.
How did that affect you?
To be truthful, I was really unaware of it initially. Right, I went away to boarding school in '69 in Enniskillen, and we live in the Commons, which, if you know Balik, it's the road out towards the Bow Island, out towards Kesh, and the border runs right behind us, just a couple of fields behind, and
sat over there.
We kind of, my neighbour from across the road, Peter, is here, and we would have played in the fields just behind the house, and there was a lane, Dolan's Lane, which is still there, kind of a couple of houses down, and sort of you could walk down that way to go across to Bunnahill, which is the next road behind us in Donegal. And the border was just a shock. So we passed no remarks on it until I went away, and then the lane was blown up at the beginning of the Troubles, as were all the unapproved roads around the north. And there was something like 168 of them in Fermanagh alone. And so farmers, being farmers, eventually very quickly found a way to drive around the big hole and the big crater in the middle of the road. But I don't really remember much about it at the time, because I was probably a wee bit too young, and everything was hush hush, and we still had the customs in those days, and the cars coming down across the border for the 12th or for whatever on a Sunday, they would have been queuing out as far as our house to get through the customs. So as time went on, probably the first things that I started to remember was I was at a boarding school in Enniskillen, the convent.
Hard to
And
play there.
um,
Was it hard to learn to play there?
yeah, that's
Yes.
right, it was.
See,
But I
Google.
remember the nuns would have come running quicker down the stairs if there was a bomb scare than us, and we hadn't a clue what was going on. And you weren't allowed to watch the news, so it was a bit sheltered. But I sort of remember when I was about maybe 13, the first time I saw a black man. There were woods all behind our house, running almost right down to the border, and there was shooting going on. And one Saturday morning, I was home from school, and a knock came to the door, and I answered, and this big black man in a uniform said for us to stay in, that there was people shooting at the army. And I was more in awe of the fact that this big man was standing at the door, and I'd never, it's
Like
terrible.
Ian Cooks do.
But it's terrible. I worked in the Middle East years later, and I remember Arab women coming and touching my skin to see if the freckles came off, And I remember feeling that about this man. I wanted to touch his skin, But yeah, and it's sort of, from then on, it was kind of things like not being allowed to look at the soldiers because girls were being tarred and feathered, and it was just it became normal.
It's
That
funny
you
how
stayed,
those things-
and I remember very clearly the first time I looked at a soldier or a policeman in the face. I was 40, and it was after the ceasefires, and I can clearly see the man's face outside Warren Point, because we walked along looking like that, because it was these lads on the back of the jeeps were the same age as us, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and you're 15, 16, out, as somebody was saying, out looking to shift, sort of. And, but yeah. So it was a very strange existence, and then I kind of went on to Belfast to university, and the first day I was in Belfast, I got lost, and for some reason I was going up on the bus, and I got off the bus station in Great Victoria Street, and instantly got lost. And this woman came out of a house and asked me where I was going and what was wrong with me. She said, "You look awfully lost, love." And I said, "Yeah, I don't know where I'm going." And I said I had to go to Queen's, and she said, "Oh, well, hold on and I'll walk up with you." And she went in and she put on her coat, and she walked me up to the Students' Union, and that place I got lost was Sandy Row. And it was the last thing I remember my father saying, "Oh, whatever you do, you don't go to Sandy Row and you don't go to the Shankill." And from that day on, I was never afraid being in Belfast, and it didn't matter who you were or where you were from. I wasn't afraid in that sense, but it wasn't until after the ceasefires that I realised that there was a lump in my stomach that started to disappear. And
Carried it
yeah, and
almost
even
unknowingly for years.
yeah, and even now listening to you talk and hear, I find it I've always envied everybody brought up and living in the south, that you're free to wave a flag, and if the football team are playing, you don't have any problem waving the tricolour. Whereas if we do that in the north, you're nailing your colours to a mast. And you don't really want to be doing that unless you're kind of politically out there talking to people, so but there was lots of very funny things happened as well, and playing in bands was the best part, that
You
you'd
were
go
playing,
into.
again, thank you Google. You grew up in a musical family as well. There was
Yeah.
bands, Cayley bands, singers, and sessions in the house regularly enough.
Well, no, not so much, but because again of the times that were in it, for us, Peter's house would have been more of a session house than ours. But my mother's cousins were Cayley band guys who had been part of the session scene in London, and in the early days after the war, and then they set up a pub down in County Sligo that was a great session pub. And on my father's side, my uncle there was involved with setting up the Vesh in New York. So there's always been music around.
It's been in. I'm going to listen. I'm heading off now to check the scones. But I must tell you know the song that Phil sang, Helen, Dreamin'. Phil wrote that and won the Letterkenny, remember the Letterkenny Folk Festival? That was in the early 80s, was it?
No, it was the early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yeah.
She won the singing with that, but also what I absolutely love, there was, after the Good Friday Agreement, there was a celebratory, Mo Moland organised a celebratory peace concert at Stormont, and Phil was the first to sing at it.
Yeah. Well, it was.
Tom,
Yeah, we played together.
Are you sure you're from Belfast?
Well, I was interested in you talking earlier about not being touched by the Troubles, and I think you have to be very grateful for that you
Yes.
weren't touched, because in Belfast it was a very different ballgame. And I grew up there and worked in Belfast. I'm a little bit older than Phil.
I'm the toy bride.
I was working in Belfast, and I was young. I was in my teens, my late teens, and I was working for a company that delivered stuff all over Northern Ireland and everywhere around Belfast. So there were no areas that you didn't go into. No matter what your background was, you went into all the different areas. So in that situation, I ended up in, I was very unlucky in some ways and very lucky in other ways, that I ended up in situations where I wasn't injured, I wasn't hurt, I was very lucky. I was close to bombs. I put my hand on a door of a shop and the guy said run, and I just ran, and the whole place came down. And like, that was just split seconds. That was luck. And another lucky situation, I was driving a van, and I was driving a van up into up towards the Falls Road in Finnegate North, and there was a bus burning in the middle of the road, and I thought, I think I better just turn around and head the other way. And I tried to turn the van around on the road, and as I was turning it around, I could see this guy coming running towards me up the road. And at that time, vans were being hijacked all the time, and you'd be hijacked and the van would be taken away, and but it uses a barricade or whatever you were carrying on the back would disappear. And I was delivering fridges and washing machines and things, so but they obviously had no clue what was on the van. But anyway, I was turning it around, I could see this guy running, and I was trying, this old van I was driving, as the fella says, it wouldn't have pulled the cap off your head. And I was trying to turn it around, and the steering lock on it was dreadful. And and there's a guy in the van, he was helping me, and he was sitting, and his seat was lower. He's sitting reading the newspaper. And I'm trying to turn this van, and he sort of looks up at me and says, "What's going on?" I said, "What the?" I'm trying to turn this van. So next thing I can see your man getting closer and closer, and he had something in his hand, and I thought, and he had a gun in his hand. And as I turned the van around, I just got bumped it up the curb, bumped it down the other side, and I looked in the mirror and I could see him running behind me, coming closer and closer, and I was trying to get this thing into second gear, and he had the pistol in his hand, and he just come right alongside my window, and I just looked out the window, and I was looking down the barrel of a gun, and I nearly had an accident, and I looked down this barrel, and he pulled the trigger, and nothing happened, and I just managed to get the thing into second gear and got a bit more speed and left him behind. And that experience lived with me for such a long time, because I couldn't sleeping at night. You just had this, I used to dream about being shot. It was terrible, and so count yourselves very, very lucky that you weren't touched in any way,
When the Good Friday Agreement was a certainty, what thoughts did you have?
when it came along.
Yeah.
Disbelief at the start. Not
Fear to believe, maybe.
well. I think you weren't sure whether it was actually going to come to anything. You weren't sure it was ever going to be honoured. You weren't sure of whatever was going to happen with it. It was obviously a very fragile thing, so you weren't sure whether anybody was going to upset the
apple cart.
cart, and it would be gone in an instant,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. And that was the fear. That was the fear that it would go away again, because once you have something like that, you're afraid to embrace it sometimes because you just don't know.
Yeah.
But the other side is you'd never wanted to leave. It was sort of like, nobody's going to make me leave my home, you know. And the number of times thought, that's it, we're moving south and that's the end of it, you know. And especially coming from Balik, you only needed to move down the lane, you know.
Yeah.
And but we never did. So
Anyway, I better with these two young. I better check the oven, the scones. I'm going to leave Tom and Phil. His name, I put his name first again.
we'll do a couple of songs for you. And I tell you what, I'll let Tom start, seeing that he's been doing all the talking. And
That's unusual too, isn't it? What is wrong with start?
get there.
All right. This is a song it's got a chorus. This came about as my if you're ever driving along in the car, certainly in the north, and you find yourself shouting at the radio, and there's usually a politician talking on the other side. This song came about from one of those encounters. It's called "We'll Get There When We Get There." Last Sunday I'm driving alone in my car, stuck in the traffic and getting nowhere, wondering how far it is we have all come, and if in the future we can be as one. But we'll get there when we get there, and not before that. We'll get there when we get there, can you picture that? We'll get there when we get there, I'm hoping for that. And we'll get there when we get there, and that will be that. That's your bit, don't be afraid. Yeah, try it. We'll get there when we get there, and not before that. We'll get there when we get there, can you picture that? We'll get there when we get there, I'm hoping for that. And we'll get there when we get there, and that will be that. Lovely. Watching the politics on the TV, folks bickering and fighting, saying nothing to me. I look in their faces, behind their forced smiles, at the things in their heads they can't reconcile. But they'll get there when they get there, and not before that. They'll get there when they get there, can you picture that? They'll get there when they get there, I'm hoping for that. And they'll get there when they get there, and that will be that. We're all very good at knowing what should be done. It'll take all of us to be thinking as one. We know deep inside that this is all true. To you, them is them, and to them, them is you. But we'll get there when we get there, and not before that. We'll get there when we get there, can you picture that? We'll get there when we get there, I'm hoping for that. And we'll get there when we get there, and that will be that. If you're wondering like me, what's the point of this song? Maybe it's time we all got along. Will we ever treat
each other as friends? And when will our troubles finally end? But we'll get there when we get there, and not before that. We'll get there when we get there, can you picture that? We'll get there when we get there, I'm hoping for that. And we'll get there when we get there, and that will be that. Once more. We'll get there when we get there, and not before that. We'll get there when we get there, can you picture that? We'll get there when we get there, I'm hoping for that. And we'll get there when we get there, and that will be that. We'll get there when we get there, and that will be that.
Thank you very much.
That's Tom McFarlane, the accountant from where did you say?
That's my part-time job.
We have an awful lot of problems with my name, but I never thought about it with his. In case anybody's, I spell my name F-I-L rather than P-H-I-L, purely for the reason that there's about 2 million Phil Campbells in the world, and even to the point where in America there's a town called Phil Campbell in Alabama, and it's the only town in America that has two names, a first and last name, and so Philip Campbell, and it's sort of all around it. So we were bringing out an album that Dreamin' was on, funny enough, back in 2000, and it was the only time we had a record company interested, and just as we were about to bring it out, we discovered another Phil Campbell was bringing an album out at the same time. So we came up with the idea of changing the spelling of my name to F-I-L so that it sounded more Irish and more feminine. And now I spend my entire life having to explain why it's F-I-L, you know. Or how do you pronounce it?
Don't hold it.
Sorry, I'm trying to get this tuner working, but it won't work. Anyway, I'm going to do just one serious song. This is a song I started to write around the time that I wrote Dreaming. The reason I wrote, how Dreaming came about was we were staying in former East Germany. And we were living with a man who had only 2 phrases of English. One of them was, you eat someone. And the second one was, what do you think about a whiskey? So that was what we did. But we were there for 6 weeks, and I got really, really homesick. And it was a mixture of the fear of something happening at home and the feeling that you should be doing something about it but not being able to speak up. And then I started to write this song around the same time, but I only finished it about 20 years later. And I always felt that we just needed to, the old thing of singing from the same hymn sheet, and it's called A New Song to Sing. In my life, I've seen many things I'd sooner forget if allowed. But the dreams I had a long time ago are still strong. History teaches us separate truths, and the lessons of time reinforce them. And I dream of a day to come when we all get along. Looking over my shoulder, experience points to a future that could be much brighter. We just need to find a way to move forward together. At the end of the day, we're the only ones here who can show us the right and the wrong way. Perhaps we should just draw a line in the sand and move on. And find a new song to sing, one we all can join in. Let the past rest and look to the future. We've all been brought up with our separate ways that the different histories have taught us. Is it not time to move a bit closer together? So whatever your color or the language you speak, and regardless of what you believe in, if you look in my eyes, I've the same dream as you for the future. So let's find a new song to sing, one we all can join in. Let the past rest and look to the future. We'll find a new song to sing, one we all can join in. Let's find a new song to sing for tomorrow. Do you fancy trying it? Let's find a new song to sing, one we all can join in. Let the past rest and look to the future. We'll find a new song to sing, one we all can join in. Let's find a new song to sing for tomorrow. We'll find a new song to sing for tomorrow. Go, you can try.
Okay. This song came about a few years ago. Phil's mum has sadly passed away a couple of years ago, but she sort of inspired this song to some degree because she was mad into feeding her birds in the garden, and it was her big joy every day to go out and see the birds come and feed. And we were down at the house one day and she said to me, Tom, there don't seem to be as many birds coming to the garden as there used to be. And she couldn't really get her head around this at all. And at that time, sadly it's still happening, all these people were coming across the channel in boats and rubber dinghies, and I had just visions of people carrying children under their arms and things. I just couldn't imagine what it must be like to be put in that position. And that these two things got mixed in my head anyway, and this song came out, and it's just called the Bird Song. The blackbirds and the thrushes and the robins sat around, discussing all the changes and what's been going down. I'm worried, said the robin, there's rumours in the air. I'm not sure what is happening, but I know that it's not fair. Have you ever wondered where the other birds have gone? There aren't so many here these days, I'm missing their sweet song. Some say it is the weather, some say it is the wind, but I think other forces are not letting them come in. We may have different feathers and sing a different song, but when we sing together, the differences are gone. That's your bit. We may have different feathers and sing a different song, but when we sing together, the differences are gone. If you look up in the sky, high above your head, all along the borders, there's something being said. All the crows and magpies of the neighborhood are saying, we don't want you here, taking all our food. I'm living in the hedges and roosting in the trees, building mud huts on the walls and nesting in the eaves.
They're stealing all our berries, they're eating all our bugs. We don't want foreign lads here, they're just a bunch of thugs. We may have different feathers and sing a different song, but when we sing together, the differences are gone. Now the geese that come from Canada are told they can't come round, eating all the grasses and messing up the ground. All the swifts and swallows are not allowed to stay. Even all the starlings have been told to go away. Well, I for one like to hear their exotic cry. They sing another language as they're flying by. I think for all our children's sake it would be very sad if we didn't see that different really isn't bad. We may have different feathers and sing a different song, but when we sing together, the differences are gone. Now the blackbird and the thrushes and the robin all agreed they'd have to teach the others that there's no need for greed. For birds they don't see borders as they fly o'er the seas, to find a place to feed their kids just like you and me. We may have different feathers and sing a different song, but when we sing together, the differences are gone. We may have different feathers and sing a different song, but when we sing together, the differences are gone. Once more, we may have different feathers and sing a different song, but when we sing together, the differences are gone.
Come here to hear me, look. The scones are cooked. If anybody would like a few scones to take home with them, they're there and we'll get them sorted. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wind up, but can we have one more song?
Sure, yeah. Yous are all brilliant singers, so let's do one with a chorus. Let's do Blackbird or something. Or what were you thinking?
Oh, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Dealer's choice.
Since Patricia started off singing some lovely old songs, I'll do an old one. My mother came from Ballyshannon, and she kind of taught me all the songs that she grew up with, and we got an opportunity to make a programme years ago after I made an album of all the songs she had taught me, and it turned out they were all recorded by Delia Murphy first. So we got a chance to make a television programme about her back in about 2006 or something it was. So this was her big song, which I'm sure you'll know the chorus. I am a young maiden, my story is sad, and once I was courted by a brave sailor lad. He courted me strongly by night and by day, but now my dear sailor has gone far away. Oh, the other. If I were a blackbird, I'd whistle and sing, and I'd follow the ship that my true love sails in, and on the top rigging I'd there build my nest, and I'd pillow my head on his lily white breast. He promised to take me to Donnybrook Fair, to buy me red ribbons to tie up my hair, and when he returns I will greet him so white, he will greet me and make me his own loving bride. If I were a blackbird, I'd whistle and sing, But his parents, they slight me and will not agree that I and my sailor boy married should be. But when he returns from the ocean so wide, he'll take me and make me his own loving bride. If I were a blackbird, I'd whistle and sing, and I'd follow the ship that my true love sails in. And on the top rigging, I'd there build my nest, and I'd pillow my head on his lily white breast. Well, this was
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Cheers, thank you all very much.
Come here now till you hear me looking at you. It is time to wind up. Before I wind up, now there's recipes there for, I handed around a few, but they're down on the table, left them. It's my mother's scone recipe. It's the one I use all the time. But thank you, Tom. You're letting your elders sit down, are you?
Let the children sit.
Oh, thank you. I want one of them as well. I want to cite for you before I wind up a poem that I absolutely love, and I forgot to take the words with me, so I hope I remember it. It's a poem written by the great Kerry poet Brendan Keneally. He didn't know it, but I had a love affair with him. Oh, I was fortunate to meet Brendan, but anyhow, yes, the poem, it's called Bread, and I think it says it all. Someone else cut off my head in a golden field. Now I am recreated by her fingers. This moulding is more delicate than a first kiss, more deliberate than her own rising up and lying down again. I am fine as anything in this legendary garden, yet I am nothing till she moulds me with her fingers and shapes me with her skill. The form that I shall bear grows round and white. It seems I comfort her, and even as she stabs my face and slits my chest, her feeling for perfection is absolute. So I am happy to go through fire in her name and come out shaped like her dream. In my way, I came to life at her fingers' ends, and I will go back into her again. I'm going to read you something that my mother had it hanging on her wall all the days I remember, and I'm very blessed, for I took a hell of a lot of stuff to the cottage with me, but this survived, and I'm going to read it to you now because again it says it all. I expect to pass through this world but once, and any good thing therefore that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any fellow creature, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. Mm-hmm. Thank you. A special thanks to my guests, Patricia, Brendan, myself, and Tom. And I also really, Anne and Martin, her husband, they are so supportive of the Bake Bread for Peace initiative. So really, thank you, Anne. Thank you. And to my sidekick, Helen. I never thought I would meet anybody who might put a bit of manners on me, but I have. Just remember, October the 24th, International Bake Bread for Peace Day, and all that's asked of you is that you set aside a wee while of the day and mindfully bake bread in peace and for peace. Keep the window open as you bake and let the smell of peace, the aroma of peace, go to the four directions. Take a photograph of your bread if you wish and put it onto the Bake Bread for Peace page. It's not a fundraiser, it's something that we can each do in our own way on the day. On that note, the time has come for me to go. I'll bid you all adieu. For the open highways beckon me to do the things I do. And when I'm travelling far away, I'll oft times think of you. And please God, I'll soon return unto the homes of Donegal. Thank you.
There is nothing to say. There's nothing to say. Only aren't we blessed to have Breezy in our midst?
Thank you.
I hope you all. So brilliant night, brilliant. Well done, everybody.
If you'll break some bread with me, will you break some bread with me? Won't you join our company? Our lives will be better soon, you'll see. If you'll break some bread with me. With me.